Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the first session in our data security webinar series. It's a hybrid world. Do you know where your sensitive data is? Today, our experts will share insights on how to develop effective data discovery strategies, implement tools and technologies, and optimize your data protection efforts. My name is Julia Kirsten. I'm the Events and Marketing Manager here at Trustwave, and I will be moderating today's session. A few quick notes before we get started. If you are viewing this session live, our webinar platform allows you to customize your viewer screen. Feel free to adjust the size and positioning of the slide window to accommodate your liking. We do recommend that you use Chrome as the browser of choice. If you have any problems with the audio or the session delivery, I always recommend that you hit refresh. I promise you will not need to relog in, and hopefully the system will overcome any connectivity issues. Today's webinar will include both a presentation and a question and answer session. You will find the questions window in your webinar screen, and we encourage you to enter questions as you think of them throughout the presentation, and we will address as many as possible at the end. Lastly, today's presentation will be recorded, and we will be sending the follow-up email to everyone with a link to that recording. A copy of the recording will be made available on demand on our website for future reference. Before we dive in, I would like to welcome our security experts who will be presenting today, Raul Gutierrez and Anthony Allen. Raul is the DBSS Global Solution Architect Team Lead at Trustwave. He is a 30-year veteran to the industry and holds several technical and professional certifications. Today, Raul is helping Trustwave build their internal teams and capabilities around database security globally. Anthony Allen is an account general manager at Trustwave with over 15 years of experience in cybersecurity, supporting both the federal government and Fortune 100 to 500 organizations. Anthony is a subject matter expert with an emphasis on systems engineering, security operations, and account management. Without further ado, let's get started. Guys, over to you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you all for joining today. We are really excited to speak with you today. As you can see the agenda, we're going to go over the current cybersecurity landscape. We will talk about the data modernization and cloud migration, best practices for data security, and use cases as well that we can leave you with. We'll open it up to the greater audience after the discussion. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So to start off, we want to go and really give a lay of the land, talk about cybersecurity by the numbers. So did you know the average total cost of data breaches in 2022 was $4.35 million, with breaches in the healthcare industry being the costliest at $10.10 million on average, and breaches in the US were the most expensive at almost $9.5 million. It takes an average of 277 days for security teams to identify and contain a data breach. Ethical hackers were able to discover over 65,000 vulnerabilities in 2022 alone, which is up 21% over 2021. While businesses try to protect their own sensitive files from attacks, customer information is stored in vulnerable databases all over the world. Identity fraud losses tallied a total of $52 billion and affected 42 million US adults, according to the 2022 identity fraud study by Javelin Strategy and Research. In 2023, the cost of a cybercrime is predicted to hit $8 trillion and will grow to $10.5 trillion by 2025. More than 33 billion records will be stolen by cyber criminals this year, which is an increase of 175% from 2018. So if that is not scary enough, let's look at some of the top three breaches of 2022. Number three, Cash App investing, internal data leak, which impacted over 8.5 million users. AT&T, which was an unclear cause. They did not know if it was a data leak or data breach. It affected 22 million users. And then number one, Nickelodeon's Neopets affected 69 million people around the world, and hackers were in the environment for 14 months undetected. So that goes right in line with the 277-day average that I mentioned in the previous slide. First 30 days of 2023, we're not off to a great start. January, we can actually see that uh, there were a number of breaches in January. Database of 200 million Twitter users goes public. Norton LifeLock warns customers of credential stuffing. PayPal reports credential stuffing attack, and T-Mobile discloses data breach affecting 37 million customers. So this is a quick start. We wanted to start with statistics to show and really give the why for our discussion today. So with that, we actually have a poll. So we would like you to answer this particular question. How confident are you in your ability in your organization to quickly identify and attack focus on exfiltrating sensitive data? So I'm not confident at all, fairly confident. I'm 100% confident that we have controls in place to monitor and protect our sensitive data. So we started off with a few statistics. Raul, what does this mean for us?
Thank you, Anthony. And I think what this tells us is that data is the new gold. Historically, criminals robbed banks because that's where the money was. Today, really, data is what the criminals are after. And if we look at what kind of data exists in databases, you have different types, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these. You have the qualitative data, which describes qualities or characteristics, such as social security number. This is not derived from measuring or counting, and because of that, it's quantitative data, even though it's all numbers. The data is actually qualitative, and so credit card number is exactly the same. It's a series of numbers. It doesn't represent an amount of something as quantitative data should. So it's qualitative data, and it's used more as a label to identify an element of data. So some qualitative data can be categorized as PII, PHI, sensitive information. And that's what the bad actors are after, our data, which has monetary value. And so if data is the new gold, then databases are absolutely the gold mine. And so what's causing this? What kind of actions, projects are occurring in organizations that are causing some of this proliferation of data to many different data stores across different environments? And really, it's around data monetization. Simply put, data monetization means moving data from legacy databases to more modern databases. And so it includes structured and non-structured. And so it's synonymous with data monetization is synonymous with cloud migration. And so we have one more quick poll for everyone. How far are you in your cloud migration journey? We'd like to get a little bit of feedback. Have you started it yet? You currently have no plans, but in the near future, we're moving applications to the cloud, or maybe we've already started that and moved some important applications out to the cloud, or we're 100% cloud infrastructure. We see different organizations with different appetites to actually deploy infrastructure in the cloud. So we'd like to know where you are in your journey. Give you a second to answer that, and then back over to you, Anthony.
So thank you, Raul. And if data is the new gold and it's become its own currency, databases are the gold mine. So with that, we want to leave you with a security methodology that is more of a best practice for the industry. And it combines both continuously assessing and protecting your environment. First thing that you want to do from an assessment perspective is it's hard to protect things that you don't know exist. So having that detailed database inventory is the first step. It's very important to discover the known, unknown, or rogue databases in your environment. Once you have an idea of the inventory, it's important to then test those assets for any misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, or patching gaps. And then once we have an idea of those vulnerabilities, we want to eliminate them and retest our environment to make sure that we have a baseline for security. We know the inventory, we've tested those assets. next thing that we need to do is we need to understand who has access to our assets, to our databases. Once we identify the users, we want to start to enforce the principle of least privilege and support the zero trust principles, which is, essentially means no user in our organization has more privileges or less privileges than they need to do their job and to do the duty that they have. From there, we want to monitor for anomalies, not only from our users, but also our databases themselves. And we want to respond to alerts, and we want to have that holistic 24/7 view into our users and our assets. So this is the completed data security methodology, which is the completed infinity loop. And again, it's a combination of assessment and protection continuously to have that secure environment. So with that, use case number one, I think we want to really just bring to the forefront the sensitive data piece of it, right? So we talked about asset discovery, we talked about inventory. When you're doing your inventory in the environment, it's important that you also not only find which assets you have, but out of the assets that you have, you want to identify which databases are your high value assets, considering those that have the most critical infrastructure or the most critical impact on your business and that have sensitive data in them. Once we understand where that the sensitive data is in our environment, we want to, again, test those assets to make sure that there are no misconfigurations or vulnerabilities, eliminate those vulnerabilities. We want to make sure that we understand and enforce the principle of least privilege and zero trust. And then as we're transitioning to the cloud, we can even do things like a differences report, where you want to understand the permissions of your users before and after they go to the cloud. It's important to do that testing. And then, and as I mentioned, continuously monitoring your environment on a 24/7 basis. Raul, up to you.
Thank you, Anthony. And so if we take a step back in some of the data that we've shared so far, really focusing around data security, we see that there are organizations that can help clients really tackle this challenge. And it takes a defense in depth strategy to really thwart data exfiltration. And so a partner or an organization that you partner with should have things like cyber advisory. Organizations are looking for partners, qualified partners, to help them with these increasing complexities around compliance requirements. You really need a partner with experience that could be that advisor for your organization, that can provide things like a virtual CISO. Maybe clients don't have resources to build their own security teams, or they're currently looking for a CISO and they don't have one in place. And so you need things like cyber advisory. Cyber architecture and integration teams work with clients to optimize their protection, detection, and response programs. And this is to maximize their investment. They need a partner who can help fill those skill gaps. And diagnostics, and so cyber advisory and diagnostic services, everyone needs a plan. And a good partner should help match you with experienced professionals who deliver hands-on expertise and map out your success plan. These services should help organizations understand their ability to address some of the serious security risks that we see today. It's really around helping improve your security posture. Penetration testing, this is end-to-end pen testing, and this allows you to proactively identify known and unknown threats, vulnerabilities, cybersecurity risks to your people, process, and technology. A qualified partner should perform thousands of these every year. Security services, this is an MSSP, and they should offer a complete security solution to protect systems, networks, databases, and your people. The MSSP should help mitigate that risk and manage that complexity by providing that security expertise. And so as we continue to see, we see database security, and database security is the lifeblood of every organization. And it's everybody's responsibility to maintain data security and data privacy. And so when we have sensitive data like the kind that live in databases, it's very highly sought after as a prize by malicious actors who are hell-bent on exfiltrating that data. A good partner can help secure your data wherever it lives. And then email security. And so we know that 95% of all attacks come through email. And what they're after is your data. And so a good email security provider should help reduce false positives, protect against spam, gateway attacks, viruses, phishing attempts, malicious URLs, you name it. It should catch what others miss and protect against things like ransomware, business email compromise, malware, or zero-day exploits. Does your email security provide you that level of protection? Detection and response. This is trained eyes on glass. And so where clients have confidence that someone will actually be there and help them see all through the noise and pinpoint the real issues and provide real guidance or take action on their behalf. And last but not least is advanced continual threat. And threat actors are very sneaky. They perform attacks low and slow. Advanced continual threat adds value by not only determining if there are threat actors in the environment, but also by raising awareness to opportunities of compromise before an attacker can exploit that. And so we have one more poll that we'd like you to answer, please, and that's, do you currently have an MSSP in place? Let us know your feedback, and Anthony, back to you.
Awesome. And so as Raul was able to go through that, it's important that you have a partner that can touch every part of the discussion that we talked about today: data security, data modernization within your environment. And we have here at Trustwave, the Trustwave Advantage, our ecosystem of products and services that we can offer as well. So if you have any need for any of the things that are on the slide here, we would love the opportunity to speak with you and show you more about how we do it here at Trustwave. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And Julie, we'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, guys. That was great. And just as a reminder, you will be receiving a copy of the webinar recording via email by the end of the week. Actually, today's Thursday, so probably by Monday. And if you're interested in learning more about today's topic, you can submit a request by clicking on the mail icon at the bottom of your screen. So at this point, a number of questions have come in, but please continue submitting your questions as we will get to as many as possible before the end of the session. All right, guys, the first question that came in, can your solution identify where we have sensitive data, and can we customize what we consider sensitive?
That's a great question. I can take this one. And so the Trustwave solutions do allow the ability to discover sensitive data. You can add things like metadata tags to define the criticality, your specific high value targets. And so we can help you identify where that sensitive data lives, whether it's on-prem, in the hybrid cloud. And not just that, but we can start to identify who has access to that information. Should they have access to that information? How did they gain that access? So that's a great question, and absolutely, we have that capability.
Okay. All right, next question. We already have a vulnerability scanner for our operating systems, applications, and we have database scanning as well. What is the benefit of using the Trustwave solution?
Absolutely, I'll take that question. That's a great question, and we run into this quite frequently. Organizations have a mandatory tool, a tool that they've used for a long time that covered applications, networks, operating systems, and later they added database capabilities to run assessments. The difference really is the Trustwave tool is a purpose-built solution. We don't do anything else other than databases. And the first ever database scanner introduced into the industry was actually the Trustwave App Detective Pro tool. So we've got a long history of doing this, and certainly I think that's what separates us, differentiates us. We've had many big customers who have, you name it, they have all the software you could possibly imagine. They still came to Trustwave because they knew they needed something purpose-built for the database to really thwart data exfiltration. It does make a difference. Great question.
Okay. Let's see, next one. Does the Trustwave solution help support zero trust initiatives around data access and data privacy?
Happy to take this one too. This is another great question. These are on the mind of every organization implementing a least privilege environment. And so this is where we identify highly overprivileging issues, access to environments. And so you really need the ability to identify where these things exist. It's a complicated relationship between data, users, roles, and privileges, and it's almost like a spider web of relationships. And so you really need a solution to help unravel those complexities and identify things like toxic combination of privileges, who are my privileged users, and really help you start to implement that least privilege environment. So another great question.
Okay, two more just came in. How can Trustwave assist in identifying DLP?
Yeah, DLP is data loss prevention. And so really it's around having controls of where we maintain and store data. And so we can identify if it's sensitive in nature, and we can add additional controls to thwart exfiltration, not only to advise early on that there is some suspicious or anomalous behavior, because that's also part of it as well, finding anomalies to maybe an existing user that is supposed to have access to the environment, but it's been compromised. How do we see those things? And you need controls to take action if activities are anomalous in nature, and you need anomaly detection to be able to identify things that are off of the normal patterns that we see. And so we use behavioral models around that. And it's not specifically a DLP solution, but that's how we'd answer that, and certainly the type of capability built into the Trustwave solution. Another great question.
Okay, looks like we've got one more question. Right. And again, keep submitting your questions, and if we don't get to them by the bottom of the hour, we will definitely reach out to you. All right, the last question is, does the Trustwave DB security tool support on-premise databases only, or is it only for the cloud?
That's a great question, and today's hybrid world, as the topic of today's discussion was, we see databases, data stores in many different locations. And so the Trustwave solution supports your traditional relational databases on-prem, your Oracle, SQL servers, Sybase, etc. And we also support the cloud platforms, so Azure, AWS, Amazon, and those database platforms. So the technology is really designed for a hybrid world. And the targets can live wherever they may live, relational, structured data, NoSQL platforms, big data platforms, you name it. We have support for the majority of database platforms that we see highly used in the industry. So another great question, and again, we support the hybrid world.
Okay, and looks like one more just snuck in here. Does Trustwave offer include privileged access management?
Yep, privileged access management. So the technology is a security solution, and we're looking more around identifying suspicious behavior, identifying misconfigurations, and providing advisory. And so you'll use actual administrative tools to implement some of these changes. And then you have things like password management technology. And so we offer the ability to identify the security weaknesses, and so other technologies actually allow you to do the administrative and fixing aspects of remediating these issues. Another great question.
Okay, that is all the questions that we have. So before you guys leave, we would greatly appreciate it if you take a moment to fill out our post-show survey to rate this session. You can view that below. You will also be prompted to take the survey at the conclusion of the webinar. Please look for our follow-up email in the next coming days. I will include a link to today's webinar recording. Do you guys have anything else to add? But we've got a few more minutes. Do you have anything else to add? If not, I can conclude it.
I'll go to my end. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking.
All right. Thank you. And we look forward. We have our next session coming up in April. So hopefully you guys can join us for the next session. We're going to be including pen testing, and it's going to be great. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining our webinar, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.